love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
What's up, guys? Leyton here for UFC Gambling Addicts. Back with the Dubai card. It's a little bit late of an upload, but still a few days before the card. So as always, if you want to join the giveaway, you can do that. It's a $100 gift card because it's a pay-per-view if you win the giveaway. And if you don't know how to win the giveaway because the instructions on screen didn't make sense to you somehow, then leave a comment and I'll explain how. And as always, yeah, appreciate you guys. Smash a like if you appreciate the breakdown and enjoy. Peace.
And welcome to episode 44 of UFC Addicts. My name is Aaron, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, the reigning, defending champion of season 1 of UFC Gambling Addicts, Leyton. And we are here to break down the latest UFC card being from Abu Dhabi on September 7th. It's an early card again, not quite as early as China, but it starts about 3 to 4 hours earlier here in the state, actually 6 hours earlier here in the States. And as always, my co-host is Leyton. Before I turn it over to him, UFC 44, just for a little bit of a reference on people who may want to complain about a card. Randy Couture versus Tito Ortiz back in 2003. Randy Couture won a 5-round decision. I'm sure that was exciting. And Andrei Arlovski was the co-main event on the card, winning in 2 minutes over Vladimir Madushenko. And this is in September of 2003. So Andrei Arlovski's still around. As always, I'm here with my co-host, Leyton. And how's it going, reigning defending champ?
Yes, it sounds good. It sounds good. You said it this week. So, yeah. We'll go back to China before we get into this one. A massive credit to Weili Zhang. You know, Jessica looked like Jessica. She tried to close the distance, got calf kicked 3 or 4 times, and you know that switched in her brain that, oh yeah, I need to punch you in the face really hard, and that resulted in Jessica getting punched in the face really hard. So massive credit to Weili Zhang, and you know she didn't only rock Jessica with that punch. The follow-up was far more damaging. You know, those knees, a couple elbows, maybe to the back of the head. But as soon as she was warned, she switched to knees to the body, knees to the head. Just amazing to see her perform like that in 45 seconds and get it done like that. Just so impressive. And credit to you, because you really like Weili Zhang, and I've never picked against her until that fight. I really like her too, but you stuck with her. You stuck with her on that pick, and just, you know, I'm speechless. She got it done.
Yeah, I gotta say, you know, being up at 3 a.m. for the card, I didn't mind it. First of all, it was pretty rough. Most people know how I feel about Elizu dos Santos, and know that I'd been touting him for about 7 fights now, saying he was the most underrated guy in the entire UFC, saying he was well beyond this fight and everything like that. Needless to say, he wasn't. One of the more disappointing fight performances of the year for me, honestly, that Dos Santos fight. But then to have the roller coaster that's MMA come in with Zhang right after that, you know, I was talking to you during it. I said how I was pretty much done having favorite fighters after the Dos Santos fight, and, you know, everything like that. And then Zhang gave me 45 seconds before she made me a complete liar. I love this girl. She's got to be one of my favorite fighters. I definitely teared up after it happened. When she did that little tumble and then that hop, it was just just pure exuberance, like, because it wasn't a cool looking celebration at the end of it, but like, I mean, there was a cool tumble, but that little hop after she landed on her feet from the tumble, do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Huh?
Like, it was just like so pure and I mean, she's 30 years old. You know, you don't have to look into China history to know much about how females have been treated in that country. and how they're viewed overall. So, I mean, it's a really important win for worldwide MMA, I think.
Massive.
I think this is I think this may be on a global scale bigger than Ronda Rousey by the end of it if she can really put together some performances here.
Well, that's 20 in a row now.
20
she
in
lost
a row.
her debut and 20 in a row. So
yeah, 20 in a row. She's now got 2 finishes. And yeah, that fight looked a lot like Nunes versus Cyborg, but better. But it was just another one of these situations. But with Andrade, she used to be, and maybe she still is, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. She seemed to have forgotten it, gotten an old syndrome I refer to as Jorge Gurgel syndrome. And she just bit down on her mouthpiece, thought, I got hit hard. She's not going to hit me hard again when she sees me coming forward. Oh, she did hit me hard again. And it was just over.
It was really quick.
It was over. It was emphatic. I gave Jessica credit before the fight for taking in China. I'm not going to give her more credit after the fight because she lost, though. So, I think that beating Zhang in China moving forward, good fucking luck. That's all I got to say. I want to see Zhang versus Tatiana. I can't wait to see that fight at some point down the line. I get it. Tatiana's at 115 right now, but I think that's the fight that Zhang will possibly lose her title down the line. If I had to choose, that's the fight. But I like how Zhang doesn't seem to be worried about moving up to 125. She's a great size, both functionally and from a power perspective for the division. She's incredibly well-rounded. She's focused. I mean, I'm not sure what you can say about this girl right now.
Two other really good fights you could think about with Zhang is Rose and JJ. Those are two really
fights.
Good technical fights where you're not going to get Andrade, walking forward. You're not going to get that out of Rose and JJ. You're going to get two people who look technically as good as Zhang on the feet. So those are two really good fights that we could get coming up.
And leading us into the first fight here at lightweight, we have a matchup between the newcomer, Faris Smile Killer Ziam, and he is facing off against Mr. Don Madge out of South Africa, who made quite a statement in his debut against Tay Edwards in a fight where he was, I believe, a 3-1 underdog. We'll be breaking down, I believe it's Ferris. I'll just be calling him by his nickname, Smile Killer. So Smile Killer, he is 10-2, 5 TKOs, 3 submissions. Smile Killer, he's a pretty well-rounded kid from what I've gotten to see. And this is a famous phrase I've had to use a lot in the Contender series, but while he hasn't faced a lot of super recognizable opponents, he hasn't just gone in there and just blown out his opponents also. So I often like to see, when I see a guy who's like 10-2 or something, I like to see a little bit of a variation in duration of finishes and things like that. So I like, not necessarily to see a guy who goes in and gets all his finishes in under a minute or something. That's great, but also doesn't give you a lot to go on sometimes. So by doing that, it's been able to show he can kind of show a good variety of skills, having 5 TKOs and 3 submissions. He's 6'1", so he's got great height for the division, which can always be, kind of a good thing and maybe sometimes not a great thing with regards to leaving your body open, and especially against a guy like Don Madge. Madge is going to go to the body a lot with his Muay Thai, both in the clinch and from his kicks. I think that if this is on the feet, I really think Madge is going to be tough to beat. So I think that in order for us to have a chance, he's got to mix it up. He's got to be the one pushing Madge against the cage, not getting reversed, looking to get him down. And I just think this is going to be on the feet a little bit too much, with where Faras, he kind of waits a little bit too long, sometimes waiting for the counter. And with a guy like Madge, if you wait too long, I think it could end up costing you really. So I think that Madge won't have an issue leading the dance, and he may look to show in his debut here that, or I'm talking about Firas, he may look to show in his debut here that he does have the well-rounded skills, which may cause him to get to a decision, but I think this is Madge's fight to win. He's had a lot of time off since his last fight, and so I'll take Madge, but I'll take Madge to get a decision win.
Nice. Okay. Dom Madge comes into this fight 1-0 inside the UFC. And in all honesty, I don't know too much about Dom Madge. But what we all do know is, looking at his debut, we was all impressed, right? We saw that the way he destroyed T. Edwards, he rocked him on the feet, and then the head kick as well to follow it up. It was nasty. You know, you said plus 250, plus 300 underdog. And we look at the debut and we was very, very surprised. Your opponent, the guy you broke down, Firas, I don't know too much about this kid either. He seems to be quite tall, quite long, a well-rounded guy, but you know, I'm looking at this fight and it's really a pick'em, to be honest. I don't know too much about either. I don't know who's far more superior, if you will. But if I had to make a deciding factor, it's probably Dom Madge just looks far more confident in the octagon. He seems quite a bit quicker. So I'm deciding via quickness and confidence. So yeah, I'll take Dom Madge via decision.
Yeah, I think this is kind of Smile Killer, he's really a new school MMA type of guy. Probably started out training MMA, if I had to guess. So he's more well-rounded. Madge is more of a specialist, more of a kickboxer. I believe Madge had 20-plus pro kickboxing fights as well. So, in Muay Thai. So, I mean, it's a little bit of an old school matchup versus new school. If Firas comes in here and wins a decision, it wouldn't surprise me, considering we've now seen Tay Edwards, twice now in the octagon?
Yes, we have.
And he lost both and really didn't look too strong. And I don't remember who he faced.
I believe he's 0-2. Was it Dennis Bermudez, I think?
It was Dennis Bermudez in his, exactly. So it was a fight that, so we don't know how good Tay Edwards is. He was 6-0 coming into the UFC. He won a Contender Series bout. So we'll see. But yeah, Don Madge is the favorite, as I kind of expected. And going to Bovada, he's a minus 190, plus 155 for Ziam. I think that's fair.
It's a fair price. I mean,
I think one thing about Ziam is he has been fighting a lot of fights over in Eastern Europe, so it's kind of near Abu Dhabi in that area. So regionally, he's probably not traveling too far. I do believe Madge fights out of Florida at this point, so there's a little bit of a travel issue there. Madge only has one fight in the UFC, and it was against a not great guy, so does have a little more experience, but I think Ziam may be a guy that we just don't know enough about, so we don't know how good he is. So it's kind of a tough start to the card here, but I wanted to pick the newcomer. This wasn't enough for me to go with, so I had to go with the guy with some clear specialties in Ziam. So,
And before we move on, are you going to place a bet in this one? We're going to make this a new thing on this channel where before we move on to the next one, just literally yes or no.
So I would say that I will put down a bet or two or include it in a parlay, but not more than one for me.
I'm with you. I'm going to have one bet only on Dom Madge.
And I'm probably going to get that bet in today because I think this is a line that's going to shift as the week goes towards Madge more. And if I know this may not make a ton of sense, but if you're wanting to wait, I would wait on Ziam and wait till towards the end of the week because I do think his price is going to shift closer to plus 170, plus 180. So
fair enough.
I think bet on Madge early if you're going on Madge. Wait for us if you're betting on us.
Nice. Okay, moving on into the second one.
Okay, go ahead.
We have Zach Cummings versus Omari Akhmedov, and I'll be breaking down the Russian. Comes into this fight 6 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw inside the UFC. This is a bit of a weird fight. It's a bit of a strange fight. Both guys used to compete at 170, and now they're competing at 185. I don't highly rate any of them. Either guy, I look at Zach Cummings, and I'm glad he's in the UFC. Same with Omari. They're good enough to be in the UFC, but I don't exactly, rate them too highly. So it's hard to make a pick here. I feel both guys are going to slow down towards the end of the fight, so it's hard to decide which is going to be, the factor, the story. But I'm leaning more towards the story being Omari is a talented grappler, more so than Zach, I believe. And maybe the grappling in the first round, and maybe towards the end of the third, if it gets that far, maybe it's the grappling of Omari. So I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to take Omari via a very close decision.
All right. I will be bringing on Zach Cummings. Not Cummings. I like this fight actually a lot because it's against 2 guys who are at very similar areas in the 185 division. They both have moved up from 170, as you've said. I think that over the next few years, we're going to be saying that a lot. I think eventually other athletic commissions are going to adopt what California's adopted. And if you saw how over everybody was on those weigh-ins, pretty much, I think 12 different fighters, according to California's rules on how much you're supposed to gain in between the weigh-ins and the fight, should have to move up in weight class based on how much they gain between the weigh-ins and the fight. Uh-huh. So with Cummings, I do agree with you. I think the gas tank is going to be the key in this fight. Cummings, he's coming off a really good back and forth fight with Giles, which we saw another pretty decent Giles fight. But we've also seen that Giles appears to kind of have some holes in his game. So the fact that Cummings was as close with him as he was, maybe, a little bit questionable as to sometimes the pattern Cummings has with allowing his opponents to look better than they should against him. He had that split decision loss against Prazeres, made Giles look really good. But then he had the fight against Ponzinibbio where he held his own. So Cummings is a tough guy to figure out. He's really crafty, definitely has surprising power, and his grappling is really good too. And you can kind of say all the same things for Akhmedov too. So I think this is a fight where they're fighting mirrors of each other. And I think that Akhmedov relies a little bit more on explosiveness and athleticism than Cummings does. And Cummings, I think, pulls ahead in the 3rd round, ekes out a split decision. So I'm going to say Zach Cummings by split decision.
Okay.
And
decent.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 1 round apiece. I think Akhmedov comes out, wins the 1st round. Cummings makes some adjustments in the 2nd, is able to tire him out a little and win the 2nd, and then squeak out a 3rd round.
Yeah.
So
we basically see the same fight, really.
Yeah, this is one that, we look at it ahead of time, and this is one I think it was pretty easy to identify as one we were going to probably disagree on. And it's a pick'em, opened at plus 100, minus 120 for Akhmedov. It's now minus 115 each way on Bovada. So
the odds. I like the odds because you look at the fight,
same guy,
and you see it a pick'em. I see a pick'em. We've gone different ways. But the odds reflect that. The odds are, minus 120, minus 115, like you said, on Omari, plus 100, plus 103 on Zach. So for that reason, I'm probably just going to probably start Omari in 2 parlays, just because the odds are so good and it's such a close fight on paper. I'm willing to take that risk. I'm going to put Omari in 2 parlays.
Okay, cool.
You want Zach?
Yeah, so I got pretty much the same thing. If it gets to, sometimes my betting doesn't make the most sense, but I think if it gets to a plus 120 range on Zach, I'd up him to 3, to be honest. But either way, it's going to be 2 or 3. I'm actually confident that Zach Cummings wins this fight. But again, this is a this is another fight where Akhmedov is the guy who's going to be more familiar with fighting in that area of the world a little bit more. So it's going to be a little bit less of a culture shock, a little bit less of a travel issue. So that's something I do like to look into with a lot of these fights. I won't, give away the next fight, but, I definitely think with the next fight, it may be playing a factor too, to be honest. But
okay, lead us in.
Yeah. So that does lead us in, and that leads us into a fight between Nordin Taleb and Muslim, the king of Kung Fu, Salikhov. Another guy with a really great nickname, a little bit misleading as to how he's been so far in the octagon, if I'm honest. But 14-2 overall. He's 1-1 after piecing up Ricky Rainey on his way to a second-round TKO, which followed up a super lackluster debut against Alex Garcia, where he gassed in round 2 before getting subbed. Prior to the UFC, Muslim, extremely flashy, exciting. Obviously, the competition's risen, and those methods work less and less. He's a very physical guy, but I do question how he holds up as you push him. Mm-hmm. Again, the matchmaking is done great here because I think he's facing a guy in Taleb that's a very similar type of guy, both in style, career age. I know Taleb has a little more experience in the octagon, but Taleb appears to be really heading on the downside of his career quickly. I think all the miles, all the injuries, all the overall increase in competition, I think it's taken a toll on Taleb. So I'm really surprised because when I first saw this fight, I was picking Taleb, and then I looked into it more, and I'm actually going with the King of Kung Fu. So I'm going to pick him to, I think, mix it up a little more. I think they're both going to come in similar kind of shape, and I just think Taleb is on the downslope, and Muslim is also it's somewhat on a downslide, but I think still towards the top a little bit more with respect to his career. So I'll take Muslim, another really close decision. I have a lot of decisions on this card, just so you're aware. But I got Muslim by a close decision.
Nice. Okay. Nordin Taleb comes into this fight 7 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. What can we say about Nordin? He's a Muay Thai specialist. If you give him space, he's going to look like Nordin Taleb. He's going to use his Muay Thai on the outside. He's going to be very comfortable. He's going to control the fight. Now, the way you beat Nordin Taleb is you have to close the distance. You have to make sure there's no space. You have to make him uncomfortable, and if you do that, if you look at his fights, if you do that to Nordin, you pretty much hurt him. Now, he has a similar fight, like you said. So I'm expecting Nordin to be able to fight his fight, but at the same time, Muslim Salikhov is actually 185-13 in kickboxing. So this fight is now very interesting because, like you said, this is a very similar fight. So Nordin is going to have a very tough fight on his hands, even at distance. Even fighting his fight is going to be very, very tough. So I'm with you. I believe Muslim Salikhov is able to close the distance and score like that, like people do on Nordin, or he can keep it at distance, which is both of the preferred style anyway, and it's going to be very tough for Nordin either way. So I believe Muslim Salikhov has more areas to go in the fight to be able to score. So for that reason, I'm going to take Muslim Salikhov via a very close decision.
Nice. So we go to the odds. It's another close one. I opened at even for Muslim, -120 for Nordin. Now 115 or -105, -125 for Taleb. So
wow. There we go.
Yeah,
I've still got Salikhov at +100. So.
Yeah, well, I have Salikhov -105 on Bovada. So, I think that it's maybe whichever guy I'm going with, which that could change throughout the week. I'll be honest. I'm putting him in 1. Yeah, for me.
Yeah, I'm most likely putting Salikhov in 1, maybe 2. Maybe I'll catch +100 with 2. before it switches.
Honestly, I was going to say one or on passing, to be honest.
I'm with one.
I'm not that confident in Muslim, to be honest. I saw him make Alex Garcia look like a world beater, man. I remember after that Alex Garcia fight, people were pointing to Alex Garcia as being a guy who's going to compete for a title at 170.
That's silly. Well, styles make fights. This is why we love MMA. I don't see Nordine going for a takedown on Salikhov. No. I do see a kickbox. Exactly. So that's why these odds are so close.
I could see Muslim going for a takedown, though.
He'd be silly too. He's 185-13 in kickboxing and has 80 TKOs in kickboxing before the UFC.
No, I know. Yeah, I know, but the blueprint is there on how to beat Nordine.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like the odds. I love them. Very close.
All right. Yeah. Let's move on to our next fight here, which is I think it's a better fight than a lot of people realize. Mm-hmm. And it's at 170 between Bilal, remember the name, Muhammed, and Takashi Sato, I believe. Is that how you say it?
Takashi Sato. Yep.
Sato. Sato. I'll be breaking down Bilal. The 30-year-old Rufus Sport representative, 15-3, 4 TKOs. He's 6-3 in the UFC, coming off that decision win over Curtis Millender, where he really looked composed, controlled him there. Didn't just rely on the takedown like some people may have expected before the fight. And that was coming off a loss to Jeff Neal, where Jeff Neal really pieced him up in that fight, but wasn't able to put him away. So props to that. And before that fight, Bilal had won 4 straight, so that's 5 of 6 he's won now. And he's looked better and better in the octagon. He's facing a guy who I think is more dangerous than a lot of people seem to be realizing in Sato. He obviously crumbled Killer B in his debut in that round 2. It wasn't a great performance, though, so maybe kept some people from being excited for him, but I think still a tough veteran to put in your debut, and he did what he was supposed to in there. So I do think this fight is mostly fought on the feet, and I just think that the pace is going to be dictated by Bilal here. Bilal's really, really good, so this is a tough fight for Sato. I think the pace and volume of Bilal won't slow down during the fight, and I kind of question the volume with Sato, at least from what I've seen so far. So, and I do think Bilal can mix it up if anybody does need to in this fight. So I would like to see Bilal get a finish. That's kind of what I've been feeling with Bilal a lot lately, but I don't think he will in this fight, and I think he gets a decision win. So take Bilal by decision.
Okay. Takashi Sato comes into this fight 1-0 inside the UFC. I have seen a couple of his fights before the UFC, but I'm mainly judging him on his debut. And, you mentioned it wasn't the most impressive performance, but I didn't know too much about him before that. So to see how explosive he was, to see how powerful his punches were, that impressed me. So credit to him there. But I'm looking at this fight, man, and Bilal Muhammad, he is a hittable guy. You see some of the work Jeff Neal done on him, and I do see that. So I'm kind of agreeing with you that some people may not understand how close this fight really is. I do believe Sato is a powerful guy and probably does land a few powerful shots. But I'm with you. I'm with you for the most part. I really believe Bilal Muhammad he's a workhorse, man. He's a proven grinder, and just like you said, he sets a pace on the feet, and he makes you crumble under that pace. But he does mix it up. He will implement takedowns with that pace, and that kills you even more if you get back to your feet. Now you're more exhausted, and he may even take you down again. So I'm with you. I think the pace Bilal is going to set will be too much, and if he doesn't get hit with a devastating shot, then I do see a decision win too. So I'll take Bilal Muhammad via decision.
Yep, and this is a fight where, I mean, the odds are going to price me out of putting this in too much, but I'll put in 1 or 2. It's at -350. plus 265 for Sato.
I'm just gonna stay away. I mean, I would, if I felt confident on
Sato,
Bilal, I'd make a play.
This is how I feel. This is how I feel. Is that
I've got
even
minus
at that?
4.
Yeah, I have a minus 350. The way I feel is that I can read William Hill's here too. I have it right here. The way I feel is that I am more than twice as confident in Bilal over Muslim. But
see, I'm not.
But here's my point. If I was twice as confident, Bilal is a plus 250. He's a plus 350. That would make me more than 3 times as confident in him. So it's probably going to be in just one, and it probably will be part of a parlay. I don't think Sato can beat him. I think this is several levels up from withering Ben Saunders. So R.I.P. Killer B. He probably has another fight in the UFC too. That guy is so fucking tough. It's insane. It's not normal. I mean, but he'll be great in bare knuckle boxing in a couple years, I'm sure. So on to the next fight. I'll try not to be so mean the rest of the way. On to the next fight here. It's at 155, correct?
Correct.
And it's between Ottoman Bulldozer Azaitar, and he's facing off against and no breaks on this one with Teemu Packalen.
Packalen.
Oh yeah, the guy who got starched by Mark Diakase. He finally woke up. That's good. So I'll be breaking down Ottoman, which is one of my favorite items of furniture. I don't know about you, but think about it while I'm doing my breakdown. Ottoman Azaitar, 5'7", 155er. So this guy's a little Ottoman. 11-0, 7 TKOs, 2 submissions. I'm going to use my Contender Series line. He has not faced the best of competition prior to getting signed by the UFC. However, Teemu is not exactly great himself. And Teemu is the kind of guy you want to debut against. Teemu can be physically overwhelmed, and I think that's what Ottoman looks to do here. As long as his grappling defense is on point, I think Ottoman should be successful here. And I think the question is whether or not he gets a finish. Teemu's been battling some injuries the last 2 years since getting starched by Diakase. But I think Ottoman has a good debut here. And I will say Ottoman's able to get a grounded pound TKO in round number 2.
Nice. Okay. Teemu Packalen comes into this fight 1 win, 2 losses inside the UFC. And yeah, I think it's been over now 2.5 years since that Mark Diakase fight. I was actually at that fight. That was the Jimmy Manoir versus Corey Anderson card in London.
What a knockout.
Yeah, and that was like the 2nd or 3rd fight on the Fight Pass prelims as well. So, that's when I met Bruce Buffer that night too. And man, I was did
English show up for the prelims?
No, that's how I got to meet Bruce Buffer that night. There wasn't many people on the floor.
So what did the Diakase shot sound like live?
Bro, that's what I'm saying, man. I was right there, like near the octagon, and it was there wasn't many people there, and I had the most perfect angle of it. It was
Did it make a sound?
Yeah, it was. You could hear it all. It was like he went down in slow motion. It was that bad. It was terrible. I can still remember the sound of Ngannou knocking out Arlovsky in Denver. Yeah, I can still remember. And that was a sold out crowd for the co-main event, and I could still hear it in the upper deck, and it sounded like somebody took 3 plastic hangers and snapped them over a megaphone or something. So, man, it's devastating.
That was a fist going. Yeah, but anyways, there's other things about Teemu than his KO against Diakase, I assume, right?
Not really, mate. He's as bad as we make him out to be. He has just woke up. It's been 2.5 years. And, you make the best point. This is the type of guy you want to debut against.
And he gets 2 years of ring rust added onto him. They must want this Ottoman guy to put on a show.
Yeah, literally. It's like they released him and brought him back. And I don't know. But Ottman he's finishing everyone. He's going all out straight away. There's no waiting around with him, and 95% of his opponents do crumble when he does that straight away. So I can only assume a guy that got destroyed 2.5 years ago is probably going to be destroyed as a showcase here. So I'm going to say round 1 here, mate. I'm going to say Ottman via TKO round number 1.
Are you putting this officially, labeling this as a showcase fight?
This is a showcase fight, I believe.
I agree. I agree with the showcase label. I assume being 5'7" and 155, he's going to be massively stronger too. So he's probably going to get in and I mean they must. Quick. And I apologize for calling him Ottoman. I realized it's just Ottman that makes me. I was not trying to be disrespectful. That was just natural disrespect on accident. So apologies to Ottman. So Ottman is a minus 230 favorite, both on minus 230 on mine, minus 227 on William Hill, plus 180 for Timu. I'm shocked it's that close. I don't know how Timu wins, but I guess he can. He is 11-2. So I mean, this guy's making his debut. So I will have that in 2 parlays.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm on 2, maybe 3, maybe even 3.
So I may just
what I may 227, man.
What I may do is 1 parlay and then 1 with a finish method. He's
got to be in a couple at least. I mean, that could be way worse. I was expecting that to be minus
anytime you
4.
can get a showcase fight, or at least what I feel is a showcase fight for under minus 3.
Yes,
I think you gotta kind of steal it. And I mean, it's hard to put Ottman Azaitar as a minus 3 for his debut, but he's facing Timo Packalen. This guy is not good.
It could be way worse.
Exactly. So
that's moving on.
Hopefully that's a quick one.
Moving on.
Because it moves us on to our steak fight.
Yes. Sarah Morris versus, I'm going to call her Liana. I'll leave you with that.
Why is Sarah Morris in the UFC still? You're going to tell me. Go ahead.
Okay. She's 2 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. Sarah Morris.
Ass.
Her record isn't looking too good. She's lost 3 in a row, and potentially fighting for her job. So she likes to use her jiu-jitsu. If she can end up on top of you, great. If she's on the bottom, she's going to try to sub you. And honestly, man, it's a tough pick because Liana likes to sub people. She has maybe 3 or 4 submission wins, you'll tell us. But she likes to sub girls. So if Liana is if she wants to grapple and she feels okay to grapple, or even if she chooses to grapple, then maybe it becomes a very close fight and maybe she even gets subbed herself. So if she chooses not to grapple and chooses to use her Muay Thai on the outside, then I think she dominates. So it really comes down to how smart you think Liana is. Well, that's how I'm picturing it anyway. But I'm going to take Liana. I think maybe she's smart enough to not grapple with Sarah and just win a pretty one-sided fight. So I'll take her to win via decision. I'm taking a lot of decisions too here.
Yeah, there's a lot of decisions I think coming on this card. I don't think that Ottman and Timu is going to decision though. I think Timu either catches the little guy or the little guy catches him. But on to the steak fight, which is Liana Jojua versus Sarah Morris. Yeah, I'm breaking down Liana. So Liana is 7-2 overall, 1 TKO for submission. So she does look to go to the ground. Her TKO finish, I think, also was a TKO finish. So she looks to have a good clinch. So I don't think she's going to be relying just on her Muay Thai here. I think she's going to look to press Sarah up against the cage before Sarah presses her against the cage. So I could really see this being a kind of fight where the 24-year-old is just a little bit overwhelmed and Sarah is able to use the veteran savvy and get a decision. She's going to be fighting very desperate / smart in there. And I'm talking about Sarah, I think. She's very aware she has her job on the line, and I think that she's just gonna out savvy Liana here and overwhelm the 5'4", 24-year-old here. So I think that when I watch Liana, I see a lot of what I saw the Laura Procopio girl last week, and we saw how she did. So I think just little arms, can't quite reach her opponent. She thinks she's a better grappler than she is, and Sarah Moras wins a decision. I don't like it, but yeah. And our streak of disagreeing on low-level women's MMA continues. I mean, why not? I don't do it on purpose.
Yeah, but, same, mate.
But this is definitely a fight that I had a feeling we were going to disagree on, especially once I picked Sarah Moras. So the Cheesecake Queen is plus 120, so I got her at dog money. That will get her into one parlay. Congratulations. Nice. Or, you know, so it will get her into something for sure. So I always like to get, you know, the underdog just by a little bit. But yeah, minus 150 for Liana Jojua. So
I'll put her in one. I mean, minus 150.
Minus 150, really?
If she fights at distance and doesn't want to grapple, then I like that price.
But she likes to grapple in all of her fights.
If she's not adjusting her game plan, because now we're at the big time, right? We can't just keep fighting the way we like to fight, you know? And you said it at the very start of this podcast. Jessica Andrade is a black belt. And when you fall in love with something you just love to do, you get a rush of like putting people down. You become something that's going to lose. So same with DC. You know, you get to the fourth round against Stipe and you like hitting people and it put him down the first time and you forget you're a wrestler. So if Liana is smart, she'll choose not to grapple here. If she is still learning and she wants to grapple and she's confident she can grapple, then that's going to be the loss. But I'm willing to, you know, I'm willing to do it. I'm going to say
so
she's going to be smart.
Yeah, well, I think it's okay to trust your read and sometimes fade a bet. And we were talking about this last week because we bet on most of the fights every week. And by most, I mean we bet on every fight. And one thing at least I've wanted to work on is fading a little more. And I think if Sarah was a favorite here, I'd be fading her. Liana being the favorite, I would fade her, man. I don't think she has that much value. And if not, I don't think she should be in more than one.
Yep, only
That's
one.
My opinion.
Only one. So, and it's a female fight too, so only one.
Yeah. Sarah Moras is only in one for me as well. So, and she's a plus 120. So, you want to go ahead and move us on to the next fight here? Another weird one?
Moving on to I'm going to call him Zaibara versus Leron Murphy. And I'll be breaking down the Englishman. So yeah, comes into this fight, Leron Murphy 8-0 as a pro, making his octagon debut. He's a pretty tall guy, quite rangy, throws some high kicks, mixes it up. You know, he doesn't look too bad. And I don't really know what the difference is going to be. I'm assuming the difference is the grappling. It's one of the most important things in the game, the ability to take the fight to the mat. In close fights on the feet is the difference in quite a lot of fights every week. So yeah, I'm assuming Zaibara is, you know, he has a grappling background. Pretty much every Russian does. So yeah, I'm seeing that's the difference. It's going to be pretty close on the feet, I think. I don't think, you know, Zaibara is going to blow him out the water on the feet. I think the takedown at any point is going to be the difference. So I'm actually going to take a submission here. I'm going to take Zaibara to get his first submission in the UFC in round number 2.
All right. I will be breaking down Zaibara Tukhugov. I'll just be calling him Zaibara.
Khabib or cousin.
Yep. There's a couple Khabib mates on this card. So Zaibara 5'8", 145er, 18-4, has not fought in over 3 years. Zaibara was looking like a really promising prospect in his first 4 fights in the UFC. even though he had that split loss over Moicano.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, Zabera, he looked really well-rounded, looked to be a physically imposing guy, was on his way up, and then he failed the drug test in 2016. Got a 2-year suspension. He then got pulled from a fight against Artem Labov last year after the Khabib fiasco with Connor's corner after the fight. So he was getting set up with a really winnable, easy fight against a high-profile guy, and then he kind of fucked it up a little bit. All that said, he's still only 28 years old after this 3-year absence. So he's now fighting overseas. He's going to be comfortable here. Won't have to travel far, fighting along with the rest of his camp here. So I think definitely a competitive advantage for all three of those guys. Being able to, I'm talking about Islam Makhachev as well, and being able to ramp up to this fight at the same time. I don't know much about Laurent, so I do think Zabera fights a lot like Khabib. Not as good as him, obviously, but still that it's a style that he'll move forward. I think just judging by the evolution in the striking games of guys like Said Nurmagomedov and other guys at that camp, I think Zabera is going to have much better striking in this fight. I noticed it with Khabib. Just overall, it seems striking has become a bigger focus since the grappling is so on point there. So I'm actually going to take Zabera to get a TKO in round 2.
Fair play. Nice.
Yeah. We agree. Back to the agreement train here. And we go to the odds, and I don't like them at all.
No.
I don't like this at all. I won't be putting this in any. Minus 500, plus 350 on Murphy, plus 400 I'm seeing on William Hill. That's just guy's coming off 3 years absence, and he's the biggest favorite on the card.
Yeah, what I will say is if anyone's picturing the fight I picture where it's close on the feet and you believe Leron Murphy can do it, then that price, obviously you take it. But I picture a submission, you picture a TKO, which tells me
I think
Zabera can finish him and most likely will. But I'm with you. I'm not going to touch Zabera and I'm not going to touch Leron Murphy. So
Yeah. I'm not familiar with Murphy at all or where he's come from otherwise. I would probably be putting a little bit of a wager down on him. So maybe I'll try to educate myself this week and convince myself to throw away some money, but either way, I think those odds, I mean, he's the biggest favorite on the card. I'll just go ahead and say that right off the bat here. So
it's insane.
A little bit shocking to me. 3 years off. Man,
it's bad.
I just wonder if his name
600.
I just wonder if his name was Rick Glenn, what his odds would be. I think I'm not trying to be crazy here, but I think oftentimes these cool, strange names add some mystique, and it's like, oh, Zabera Tukhugov, I remember him, and it's like then you forget a guy with like a Zach Cummings if he had some Russian name right now. But maybe not. I mean, it's just one of my many theories, and I'm going to put down the bowl now.
It's one of your many strains that you're smoking on too. Moving on into the next one.
Yeah, this podcast is sponsored by Gorilla Glue number 4.
Moving on into the next one, we have, and this is still a part of the prelims. This is the last prelim. We have Joanne Calderwood versus Andrea KGB Lee, and I'll be breaking down Lee. She comes into this fight 3-0 inside the UFC, and this girl is slowly becoming one of my favorite female fighters. She's just very talented. She's a multiple-time Muay Thai kickboxing champion. She's a multiple jiu-jitsu champion, and she's a Golden Glove boxing champion. So all of that before stepping into the UFC, and now she's 3-0 in the UFC. She's been very dominant. The only question I had in her last fight was how strong is she going to be stuffing and defending takedowns with De La Rosa? Obviously, I took Lee in that fight, and she answered that question. She is very strong as well. So, yeah, overall, I can't say anything bad about this fighter. I think she's very, very talented. and I don't really know how Jojo is going to win this. Maybe she just outworks her, outscores her, maybe. But I don't know, man. I think Andrea Lee, like I said, is very talented with Muay Thai, and she can choose to grapple if she wants to. So she's going to use her judo as well. I haven't mentioned that. She all round, like pretty much everywhere, she's a strong 8. So it's going to be a very tough fight for Jojo, I believe. So I'm going to take another decision, but I'm going to take quite a dominant decision win here for Andrea Lee.
All right, I will be breaking down Jojo Calderwood, 13-4 now. Although I think the last loss we both can agree not a loss, but it was close. To Caitlin Chikadigan. And I'll get to why she lost that fight, which it's a running theme for her. But 5 TKOs, 1 sub, 6-5 in the UFC, 2-1 in quotes at 125. Jojo's a good kickboxer, and the thing that she lacks at times is aggression in the octagon. And her last 2 fights, I think, are good examples of the aggression, one in which it working for her, and one in which it working against her and costing her that decision. So I think Jojo losing could work out better for her to improve her game before getting a too soon title shot. And I do think if Jojo won this fight against Lee, maybe this is controversial, but I think it would put her in front of even the winner of Maya versus Chikadigan, or maybe it would cause that to be a title eliminator after that. But the reason that I said maybe losing this fight to Lee wouldn't be terrible for her is if Jojo won this fight and won it impressively, I think she may be forced into a title shot before she's ready, is my point. So I think Jojo looked really good at 125 and has looked better at 125, shown some wrinkles in her game, got the triangle off her back in her 125 debut. Before that, she had some struggles, I think, with the weight cut, and she has a good opportunity here against Lee. I think, frankly, Lee would be a tougher fight than the fight that her opponent, the Chikadigan, has coming up. Lee's looked really good and composed. She's looked to be a better and better grappler than she's gotten credit for. I look for Jojo to, try to use her teep at times and try to out kickbox and make it a little bit of a brawl against Lee. But I think Lee looks for the clinch, looks to use her Muay Thai in the clinch, looks to use her Muay Thai in close. And I am going to take another decision here for Lee, but a pretty nice, clear-cut decision. I don't think this will be controversial. So I will take Andrea Lee by decision, and she is a minus 230 favorite, plus 180 for Calderwood.
It's a little deep. Maybe one. I really
tough.
believe in her ability. I really think she's so talented everywhere in MMA that -2 is pretty fair.
Minus 230.
Yeah, maybe 2 parlays, but probably 1 because it is a female fight too, and I'm not great.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I agree with that on all accounts. So, but I do think Lee should win that fight, so I can understand a little bit of the odds. So, that moves us on to the main card here, which again is starting at 2:00 Eastern time, so 7:00 over there your time. So a little bit earlier than usual again. So, and this brings us to, sorry, I just got lost on my notes. I went up instead of down. Maribek Taisumov versus one of my favorites, Diego Ferreira. So I really like both these guys a lot. So I will be breaking down Maribek Taisumov, the now 31-year-old, 5'11", weighed in at 161 for his last bout. It was at 155, so you can all do the math at home. 27-5 overall, 10 TKOs, 3 submissions, 7 wins and 1 loss in the UFC. Mirabek definitely has been a really real powerhouse in the UFC when he's gone to fight. He's had different issues with injuries, visa. I think he had a USADA issue at 1.2, but maybe not. Maybe he got exonerated from one, or maybe I'm high and making it all up. I don't know. But he's great. But he's only been fighting once a year for the last 3 years. I do know that. So he's facing a really good guy who struggles with his weight as well, and Diego Ferreira. But they're definitely very different fighters. I think this is the closest fight on the entire card for me personally. I really could go either way in this one. I think that Taisumov is just going to be too strong and fast. And I think it pains me to say this, but I think he gets a finish by TKO in round 2. But Diego is such a scrapper. I really think he can win this. I think he's got to use his jiu-jitsu. I don't know how he gets the takedown, how he keeps him down, though. And on the feet, I think that he's just a little bit too short and slow for Mirabek. But we'll see how they do on the weight and everything. And it's tough for me to pick against my boy, but I got to pick the way I see it. So I got Mirabek, and I got him to finish Diego. So round 2, TKO.
Fair play. Okay, Diego Ferreira comes into this fight 6 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. Diego is primarily a grappler, but we have seen good improvements in his striking. And I agree with you, man. This is a really, really tough fight to predict because Diego Ferreira, man, he's very talented. He's a good striker now, has very good jiu-jitsu. Mirabek, very intelligent striker, has good wrestling. So this fight is very close. One thing I would say is both guys, I've noticed both guys have this disguised calf kick, and it's really, really interesting to watch because both guys are primarily grapplers, and you see Mirabek fire this calf kick that has no wind up to it, and Diego Ferreira does the exact same thing. When they're not grappling, he fires this calf kick. This has no wind up to it, so seeing that's going to be quite interesting to watch for me. But I do agree with you. I think on the feet, there's a little bit more intelligence for Mirabek. He's a bit quicker, and Diego can get quite reckless on the feet. So I'm gonna take a perfect agreement with you here. I'm gonna take Mirabek Taisumov to get a TKO in round number 2.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely going to be one of these fights where first I want to see who misses weight, or if they both make weight. That would be great. Second, I think this is a kind of fight where people will look at the weigh and be like, oh, just look at this guy versus this guy. Diego he doesn't impress you. He just doesn't impress anyone in there, so with how he looks. But when he's in the octagon, when he's performing in there, it is where he's impressed me and where he continues to. So when I see this price here, I hate it. Have you seen the price for this?
Yeah, minus 278 for Taisumov.
Insane.
And what's Diego here? Diego is
plus 210.
Yeah, plus 205, 210, 216.
Yeah, Taisumov fights once a year, and he's older. He's had weight issues. I don't think unless I switch over to Diego sometime this week that I can bet on this fight.
Yep, I agree with you. I probably don't bet on Taisumov. But if you, like I say, this is a very close fight, and that's why I'm not going to take the price. So if you think Diego can win, take it.
Absolutely, yeah. If I was picking Diego right now, I would be hammering home that bet because this is I think this is a minus 115 pick-up. I really do. It's a
very close fight on paper, and I envision one in the octagon.
It was minus 250, plus 210 opening. So I'm looking forward to this fight. I think it will be probably my fight of the night, just to jump ahead here. But yeah, you want to lead us into the next fight back at heavyweight, fortunately, after a week off?
We have Curtis Blaydes versus Shamil Abdurakhimov, and I'll be breaking down Shamil. Comes into this fight 5 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. Shamil, he's a fairly well-rounded guy. He's a strong grappler. Fairly good conditioning for a heavyweight. Output seems to be fairly okay. It's pretty decent. Above the average, I'd say. But not a world beater. He's not a world beater at all. But he's good enough to be in the UFC and worthy of this shot. But this is still a really tough pick to make because Curtis Blaydes he's a powerhouse. He's a very strong, relentless wrestler. Has very good conditioning himself. But he isn't a striker on the feet. I know he has power on the feet. And you see some of the strikes with Mark Hunt. You see some of the strikes with Overeem on the feet. But he doesn't want to do that. He does not want to be on the feet. He wants to take you down and that's it. So if Shamil is able to stuff the takedowns in round 1 somehow and keep that round very close, then I see the fight being fairly close from there. But if Curtis Blaydes is able to get that takedown, and he's very, very explosive, so there's a strong possibility that he does get a takedown on Shamil in round 1. If he's able to get that takedown and work from there and really tire out Shamil in that first round, then Curtis Blaydes probably goes on to get a finish or even win a very dominant decision. I think it all depends on how well Shamil can fight in that first round. If he can keep it close and keep Curtis, really struggling to get the takedown, then it's going to be a close fight. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take Shamil to be able to stuff that takedown and keep it very close and win and outpoint Curtis Blaydes on the feet. And I have seen the odds as well, and that's part of why I'm doing this. So I'll take Shamil to win a very close decision.
Well, I was going to say that must be part of what's going on here. I will be breaking down Curtis Blaydes fighting on Team Elevation, 11-2. He's coming off that quick KO to Francis. He was on his way up to, on his way up the division using dominant wrestling and pretty good ground and pound until he got KO'd by Francis in a fight in which he was the favorite against him. So he got back to work off that fight and just put on a wrestling clinic against Justin Willis. I had no issues with it. I was really impressed. Prior to the Ngannou fight, his stand-up had looked improved, but I think he just got caught in the right spot twice now against against Ngannou. So I think the war with Alistair definitely may have added up here. So I'm not sure, how he, even after that decision over Willis, I'm not sure how stable his chin is. And I think Shamil is a little bit of a dangerous guy on the feet, but not that much of a danger for all things considered for this division. So I've been pretty impressed by both guys. And I think that Curtis has a little more pop on his feet than people may realize. And I think Shamil, we have to kind of remember, is just a bad round away from a 5-fight winning streak right now. He got KO'd against Derek Lewis, but he was in a super close fight in that one, and I had him actually winning that fight. That fight also was in, I believe, St. Petersburg, which, again, this is maybe a travel issue for Blaydes. Blaydes is coming from the west coast of the U.S. here over, and Shamil doesn't have to travel too far. So the only time that we did see Shamil against a wrestler, though, was against Timothy Johnson.
That ended terrible in the first round. Terrible.
Yeah, and that made people really think Timothy Johnson was maybe a guy, but we kind of seen how Timothy Johnson is now fighting in the Bellator prelims. So
I've seen that guy live in London. He is not an impressive guy.
No, but look what he did against, again, it's a common opponent for Shamil. And I do think Shamil has massively improved since that fight. So to just say that that's what's going to happen here, I think is foolish. But I think Blaydes is able to get that decision. He is able to wrestle him. One thing I do love about Blaydes is he's one of these guys who's not going to go in there and Kevin Lee it, which I'll explain is a guy who needs to wrestle, and chooses not to. That's simply what it is. That's not a concern of me with Curtis. Curtis is a stable, predictable commodity. Even if Shamil is able to get up from the takedowns, he's going to get taken back down. I don't see him being able to establish enough of a pace and enough of a respect from Blaydes to get him to back off here. So I got Blaydes by decision. I'm surprised you were going with Shamil. And not just because of the odds, which I'll get to in a second, but just because of, a little bit of our conversation earlier in the week when I was considering taking Shamil. So starting to consider maybe our conversations are just a little gamesmanship all for this podcast too. So I'll take that into account moving forward, but I'm going to I'll stick with Curtis here. The odds are heavy in Curtis's favor, minus 450, plus 350 for Shamil. That's obviously too heavy for me, and enjoy taking your shot with Shamil.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first ever time I've bet against Curtis Blaydes. I'm a firm believer he's a very, very good guy. But that's when he's doing what he's good at, and that's wrestling. So if Shamil is somehow able to keep it just a striking match, then maybe. But yeah, this is the first time ever betting against Curtis Blaydes, and Shamil +3, even +4 at Sportbet, +400 is insane. So maybe a single bet on Shamil here.
I think a huge part of it is probably that you don't have to wonder with Curtis what he's going to do in there, and his thing that he needs to do in there isn't a spinning back kick or a flying knee or a triangle from his back. It's double leg, single leg, double leg, single leg.
Yeah, he's great here.
So I mean, and he is a predictable commodity who has lost to one guy in his whole career. So and he's lost to him twice, but yeah, either way, good luck with, I really actually like Shamil. He's my second favorite fat heavyweight behind Blagoy. So Blagoy's my favorite. I'd love to see Blagoy versus Shamil. Has that fight happened yet?
No, I don't believe so.
That fight needs to happen after this. Regardless, I need to see those two guys. Blagoy got stabbed in the stomach.
Really?
Let's move on to the next fight.
Okay, moving on to the next one. We have Islam Makhachev versus Davy Ramos. And I'll be breaking down Davy Ramos. Comes into this fight 4 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. He's a pretty basic guy. If you've seen Davy Ramos or if you haven't seen him, he's a jiu-jitsu practitioner. If he gets a takedown and ends up on top, chances are he ends up on your back and submits you. Pretty basic guy on the feet. That's what he's good at. He's looking to take you down and work his jiu-jitsu and find a sub. Islam Makhachev, obviously a very talented grappler himself, and I'd say quite a bit more advanced on the feet than Davy Ramos. So I feel like it's Islam's fight to lose. Islam could choose to grapple if he believes he could, if he's in no danger with Davy in the late second, maybe the third, he can do that. He could stuff a takedown, end up on top himself. Or he can keep it on the feet and probably outpoint and outwork Davy Ramos. So yeah, it's a fairly decent fight. You know what Davy Ramos wants to do. If you see Davy Ramos hurting Islam on the feet, then be surprised, I guess. But I think Islam is very talented. So I'm actually going to take Islam Makhachev to get a TKO in round number 2.
Okay. So this Islam Makhachev guy, I'll just preface this with my advice. I picked Arman in the last fight against him, and I was honestly, I was more impressed by Arman in that fight than Islam. Not saying Arman won the fight because he didn't. That's not what I'm saying. But Islam is a guy who I respect, but hasn't impressed me as he has the odds makers and other people through a lot of his UFC career. So He's 17-1 overall, impressive record. 3 TKOs, 7 subs, 6-1 in the UFC, 5-fight win streak since KO over Adriano Martins. So, or by Adriano Martins. So, again, that's a similar type of guy to Davi Ramos, except not quite as strong or as much of a freak athlete, but a jiu-jitsu based guy who got into a grappler versus grappler stand-up war and caught the guy on the feet in the stand-up. I'm not sure if Martins even has better stand-up than Davi Ramos. And Davi Ramos, very rudimentary stand-up. But, yeah, like you said, Islam had a tougher fight than expected with Arman. But we've gotten to see how good Arman is after that last fight against Aubin Mercier. Really impressed me a lot. The other thing about Makhachev is that he pretty much got an endless gas tank, from what I've seen. So, and he's a tough matchup for most people. So, I think with Ramos, his cardio is another question. He cuts a lot of weight. He's short, but really wide, really strong. And I do think that Ramos can be made tired and that the speed and precision of Islam is going to be the difference. But I don't see a finish for Islam. I think it's a decision. So I'll take Islam Makhachev by decision. And I do think that it's not the craziest thing in the world that Davi could catch him with an overhand or something on the feet and knock him out. So,
and the odds?
Yeah. Minus 325 for Mr. Makhachev, plus 250 for Ramos. I don't like it at all. Davi Ramos is what, 5-1 in the UFC?
Yeah, 4-1, I believe. Yeah, 4-1.
4-1, and maybe I said 5-1. Maybe that's a foreshadowing, but I believe it's 4-0 at 155 as well.
I mean,
so
the odds make sense because I really believe that
I have
Islam
a hard time
can grapple or strike, but at the same time, you know, Islam's looking to take you down. So, like you say, Davi could just throw a big looping strike and it could just connect.
So I'll say
maybe
this.
Put Islam in 1.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip it for sure. Skip it for me. The thing I have trouble with a lot of times is these specialists. I mean, when Davi Ramos is a specialist, I'm talking about here. Davi Ramos is a specialist, and he's a plus 250.
If you believe in it, if anyone out there believes in it, take it.
He's got a grappler's chance in this one for sure. And the thing that's amazing about a grappler's chance is that a grappler can win a decision and get a sub, and the sub can often come somewhat easier in the later round. So, I mean, I think that's a difference between a puncher's chance too.
It's a good one stylistically. I mean, if you believe Davi can do it like you just explained, it's a good price.
I've been an Islam doubter. And again, somebody who thinks, I said it the last time we broke him down, I think he benefits from being on Team Khabib. I think you've seen a Team Khabib juice increase as a result in both Zubaira and in Islam here. And I'm frankly shocked that the bigger juice went to Islam, or to Zubaira, but I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that Islam's fighting a real legit guy and a real legit specialist in Ramos. So, this leads us into the co-main event, which is my second pick for fight of the night if Diego and Merabek don't come through. So, and this is at 155. It is between Edson Barboza and Paul Felder. I will be breaking down Edson Barboza, who I was at his UFC debut back at UFC 123 at the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit, Michigan. I got to see him face Mike Lulo, which if you haven't heard of Mike Lulo, it's because he got leg kicked to death by Edson Barboza that night. And the prelims, especially back then, there was probably about maybe 1,000 people in the whole arena, maybe. So I got to hear every single one of those leg kicks echo through the arena. It was frightening. Edson Barboza is now 33. He was 22 at the time of his debut. 20-7 overall, 10 TKOs. At this point, you're listening to this podcast. I would hope you know what we get from Barboza at this point. And essentially, the blueprint's been written on the kind of guys who beat him. And Paul Felder doesn't look to follow that blueprint, I don't think. I think this is going to be a kickboxing battle once again. I think both guys have taken a lot of damage since their first time around. But I think that Barboza still has some miles left on him. He's going to be better. He's going to be faster in this one. And I kind of think it's a showcase opportunity for Barboza to look impressive and get back towards the top 5. I think this is a tough fight for Paul Felder. And unless Paul shows some wrestling in this one, I don't like his chances. And I like a TKO in round 2 for Barboza after kind of feeling him out a little bit in round 1, gauging him with some leg kicks, and getting the finish in round 2. So TKO Barboza.
Okay, fair play. Paul Felder comes into this fight 8 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. And this is a rematch. So you look at the first fight, and Paul Felder was very, very technical. You know, he fired his own calf kick. He waited for Edson. He tried to set him up with elbows. You know, he fought at distance, wasn't too aggressive. So that was about 4 or 5 years ago. You look at Paul Felder's last 4 fights, and that's Stevie Ray, and you see how that ended. You look at Charles Oliveira.
One of my favorites.
You look at how badly that ended. And then you look at the war with Mike Perry, and you look at James Vick. So what I'm trying to say about all 4 of those fights is Paul Felder became extremely aggressive as a fighter since his fight with Edson Barboza and now. So I don't expect Paul Felder to fight a technical battle with Edson Barboza this time. You look at how Edson Barboza got finished by Justin Gaethje, and you just look at how Edson loses like any fight, and it's by taking away distance. Now, Paul Felder in the first fight fought at distance for the most part and didn't make it dirty. Now, you just take a look at how Edson loses. It has to be close. Whether it's grappling or being close and finding a hook, it has to be close. It can't be far. It can't be technical. And that's what Paul fought in the first fight. So he probably doesn't fight anything like that in this fight. He's probably very aggressive. He's the Paul Felder we know of 2019. So this is a very close fight, man. I really think Paul Felder could close the distance and knock out Edson Barboza. And I really want to take it. But I just think Edson Barboza has amazing movement, and not everyone can shut that movement down. It takes a special kind of person to shut that movement down. So I will be fading Edson Barboza. I am going to take him to win a decision. But I will fade both guys here. Maybe I'll put a small bet on Felder. Maybe. But I'm not going to put anything on Edson. I think this is a really close fight. But I will take Edson by decision.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I'll put a little bit on Edson. I'll do 1 or 2. Minus 155 for Edson, plus 125 for Felder.
Really good odds to bet on though, so I probably don't fade it.
Yeah. Well, you gotta practice your fading at some point, even if it but I'm not your life coach here. I'm just your friend.
Who else am I fading? Zabora and Bilal. That's it.
Yeah, I've got what am I? Let's see. I'm fading Islam. I'm fading Curtis. I'm fading Mirabek. This feels great.
Wow,
I know. I'm fading Zabera. I'm fading. And that's it. Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, I'm fading Bilal. Yeah,
I think you said
fading
that. Bilal.
Oh, well, you know what? I may repeat myself once in a while on this podcast.
It happens when you're smoking the strain, bro.
There's my throat clear for you commenters. Right before our main event of the evening. And you can go ahead and lead us off into that.
I'll do it. Khabib the Eagle versus Dustin the Diamond Poirier. And I'm going to be breaking down Dustin. He comes into this fight 17 wins, 4 losses and 1 draw inside the UFC. You can make that 18-4 because he won that fight. And the reason I'm
or
breaking
18
down,
and 3.
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
That's how math works. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, but wait, because then you'd only take away his draw, right?
I was just trying to be funny.
Okay.
Yeah, never mind. You're right. Never mind. You know how math works, not me. I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody.
So there's a reason I'm breaking down Dustin Poirier. Now, I've taken him in every single step of this journey. I've taken him against Jim Miller, Eddie Alvarez twice, Anthony Pettis, Justin Gaethje, and Max Holloway. I took him in every single one of those fights.
You did.
And yeah, not many people can say that. You know, most people took him in most of those fights and maybe faded him on Gaethje and Holloway. But I've taken him every step, and I'm happy that he's got to this point. He's at the pinnacle. He deserves it. He's a world-class journeyman, and he has a chance. He has a chance. He does have a chance. Now, I believe that chance, I'm going to call it how it is. I really believe that chance only happens in round 1. I've heard a few people already before this podcast tell me that Khabib fades and Dustin can knock him out towards the end. And, you know, he looked good against Max Holloway in the 4th and the 5th. Now, speaking as someone who took him against Holloway, Dustin Poirier was very tired after the 2nd round. The only reason Dustin Poirier was able to win that fight and keep Max Holloway from doing what he does to everyone in the later rounds was because of power. Max Holloway could not take the power of the jab of a tired Dustin Poirier. Now, it isn't gonna phase a man like Khabib. Khabib he doesn't slow down the way most people picture him. He fights his fight, and that's making you work to get up. He clamps your legs. He beats you up on the floor. And surprisingly, not a lot of people talk about how powerful his punches are. You only have to watch the fight against Al. You know, some of the punches he threw at Al's guard was pretty powerful. And then the punch that knocked down Conor. You know, Khabib has a lot of power in his hands, and he mainly throws to the head. And that's because he wants to keep his guard up at all times. He's a very intelligent fighter on the feet. And he just smothers you, man. He smothers you on the feet. The later the fight gets, he knows you're more tired. And that's why these guys end up against the cage. That's why these guys always end up in bad positions, because they're far more tired than Khabib. You may see Khabib slow down, but everyone slows down. And I think Dustin Poirier, if he doesn't get it done inside the 1st round, I think he's going to be the guy who finds himself against the fence getting taken down. So I'm extremely happy Dustin Poirier made it to this point, but I can't pick him here. I'm going to have to take Khabib to get a submission in round number 3.
Yeah, I don't know how you could be an MMA fan and not be happy for Dustin Poirier here. I think he's a former like fat guy. When he first started training too, I think he was like pretty obese and like just has come a long way from bumfuck nowhere in Louisiana. He was in a documentary called Fightland at one point. Tim Kruder, who's an old UFC guy. I don't know if you remember him, but is one of his proteges, and kind of just like to see how far he's come in 17-4. That record's amazing. Really impressive. Moved up to 155 from 145 before it was cool to do that. And definitely has earned his way here. He's definitely got a chance like everybody else. But he's facing the Eagle. He's facing Khabib, and Khabib is one of the best in it right now, for sure. And 27-0, 7 TKOs, 7 subs, 10-0 in the UFC. Been dominant pretty much throughout, other than a close fight with Leyton Tebow. But landed some good shots on Conor before choking him out. His boxing has gotten better, but he will back up at times and raise his head a little bit in his defense. And I think Dustin definitely has the skills defensively and the ability to put up with the takedowns a little bit. And I think that sometime in between 3 and 4, there's some people who've said they've noticed that Khabib takes his foot off the gas a little bit. I tried to find this alleged guest taking off thing that he does in 10 of his UFC fights. And I saw it in 1 or 2 fights, but yeah, I'm not exactly seeing this that everybody else seems to be talking about. I think that Dustin does have the power to put him away, but even against Max, he really started to slip up, and he didn't have the power needed. That was one of the keys to Max starting to take over as the fight went on, and he probably had more power in those punches than he would against a guy like Khabib, because against a guy like Khabib, he's not going to be able to plant his feet and really fire like he did against Max Holloway. If you had a sensor under Dustin Poirier's feet for this fight compared to last fight, I bet the weight on the octagon is going to be about 40% less, because he's going to be moving much more, really on his toes. And that also changes the power, changes the approach you have to take. It changes everything when you can dictate where the fight goes when you take it there.